Good morning, good afternoon, good day, everyone. John Horodisky, Managing Director of Strategic Client Growth here at AVP, and super happy to be here with my colleague Amy to be doing the questions and answers. It's exciting. This is exciting time. We never know what's going to
Yeah.
come. We never know. We never know.
So I think, John, you're going to start us out with a question, right?
Let's see. And again, like Brittany said, keep them coming. Okay, one has come in. Oh, Amy.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts or recommendations regarding onboarding additional units or working groups into a dam that was launched originally with one unit? Ugh. Like a dam was established by a communications team, and now we're trying to add other units into it, such as fundraising, etc. Ooh, we hear of this all the time.
We do, we do. And I
Ish.
think that most folks are going to see this as a technical question. How do we make space in the dam for, the new team? And I think it's not at all. I mean, it comes eventually you'll have to do the technical work, but this is really around decision making and negotiation. So, I mean, if you think about it from the perspective of the communications team, they built the dam, they did all the work to build their folder structure, figure out their metadata, figure out their workflows, and then they've onboarded people. So they've got this system in place and it's working for them. And now this other team comes and says, "Hey, we want to join too." Well, it's fundraising and communication. So they're very different and they're going to have very different needs. So if you just drop them into the communications dam, you're going to suddenly have, probably resentment, like, I don't want to use this because this isn't what, support me. And lots of workarounds. So you're not going to set yourself up for success. So you're going to have to start with discovery as you did when you first put the dam together. So the first big question is about around governance. Who owns the dam now? Does communications continue to own it, or is it a shared ownership? That's going to be a huge question. You can't answer anything else until you decide that. Um, and so because it does affect every decision downstream. So you need to do some discovery. You need to do this intake with the new fundraising team. Don't ask them to map their needs to the existing structure. Ask them to map their needs to their needs, right? So what does their metadata look like? What workflows do they have? And you're going to find some overlap, and that's great. Build on that, but you're going to find gaps, and that's really where the work is. Like, how do you um, deal with these gaps? How do you make sure that the fundraising team can work in there as effectively as the communications team? Now, I will say one of the great things about a lot of dams out there now is you can do multi-tenancy, where fundraising doesn't ever see communications, or they only see what communications wants them to see. So that's a big part of solving the problem. But the metadata and the taxonomy and all these other things that they're going to share, those are where the work is going to have to happen. John, do you have anything to add to that?
I concur. Uh, I would just say it's a healthy sign of a healthy NAM. If people are saying, "Can I join too?" I love to hear that, and we see it all the time. Amy, Dan starts one place of an organization, and then people are like, "I hear it's so good and great, and I want that organization too." And SharePoint ain't doing it for me. So I
Yeah.
love this question because it's a sign of a healthy dam. That's what I
Yeah.
would say. And we want
Yeah.
healthy dams for everyone.
So, let's ask this question right here that Abigail asked. And this is similar to one that we already got. So, the one that we got was around how do you make the case for investing in dam governance when your executives just see it as a storage cost? And Abigail's is around what are the tips on presenting ROI of dam to leadership? They just launched an internal dam, and now they want to do some research. But if you have experience or specific use cases, could you share? So, John, what do you talk about with execs?
I am just reading the question slowly. Oh, I like this one. Oh, golly, ROI. Now, that's one of the things that we hear about a lot, and sometimes people want to think there's like a magical elixir. there's one thing we must do, right? We'll get the ROA. There's lots of things you can do, definitely. And I'll probably repeat myself today. I'm already going to assume I can predict the future today, Amy, and I'm going to say governance. Let's go back to governance, everyone, and can we just talk about governance for a while? In terms of how that can sort of help the ROI discussion. But definitely there are some potential metrics. I wouldn't get too closed on sort of going down that metrics game, but definitely, I mean, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and the statistic, and I did do research a few months ago just to confirm that the statistic is still true, and it is going around like 25% of people are still spending time searching for things. So that is one way that you can start thinking about sort of like the metrics behind these things. It's that time equals money type argument. So that is definitely some ROI stuff that you can start thinking about. But then I would also ask the question back to you, and I would sort of say, if you don't have governance, then how are you managing your risk? And that's an ROI thing. You don't want to be recreating things that you don't need to be doing, your agencies, let alone, potentially product shots being reshot when you already have it. So there are some things you could do, licenses, they might not be, they could be expired. And sometimes I've definitely seen where people have purchased duplicate licenses. Yikes, that's not good. Definitely go into the content reuse calculations potentially. And then the one that I always like, and then if you didn't do governance, I would also, and then ask the question of if you didn't do it, what would be the results? I mean,
Mhm.
you're gonna have those issues there. I like the ROI question. We don't get enough of those ROI questions, Amy. Why?
Yeah, yeah.
But well done,
I, I,
Abigail. Well done, Abigail. I like that.
I was going to also say, while it's all about governance, don't talk about it in terms of governance. Like your executives don't care how you're making the decisions. They just want to know about risk and liability, which I think is a big issue that you can bring up with them, and also speed, as John said. So like, how long does it take your team to find what they're looking for? And can you improve that timing over, you know, the over time? And then what has anyone exposed your company to risk? Have you ever been sued or had to pay for something that was shared incorrectly or
Mm,
inappropriately? That's something you can say. If it hasn't, you can say, look, we're protecting the company from risk. This
yeah.
is a huge, so making sure that you're doing that. I think the other one is our expired images going out less than they used to. That's another one. So to me, it's they want to hear about speed and risk and
Mhm.
liability. And if you can give them those metrics, I think that's going to be of great use to
Governance is not an option. It's
you.
not. We've been, I mean, but I mean, we've been doing this X amount of years.
Yeah.
Those dams that are governed well are far more successful than those who do not have it. So go do governance. All right, another one has come. It's actually a follow-up
This I see a
to,
couple of Wisconsin people in the Q&A
so a
here. All right.
follow-up. Okay, Amy, follow up to the first question. So we sort of already answered this one ish, but they followed up with a follow-up saying, how do you feel about stopgap measures, like creating temporary categories in a dam just to hold stuff prior to fully incorporate it in? Is this a risk for usability of the dam? Huh. So stopgaps and temp categories. Huh.
I think my initial gut reaction is there's never time to go back and fix something. If you don't do it right the first time, you're always like, yeah, I'm gonna go back and fix that when I have time. Well, you never have that time. So I think doing as much upfront to get your decision, you get the decisions made, talking to your teams, doing the discovery work, you're gonna get a lot more out of that than just putting stuff in. It's going to be a
Mhm.
lot harder to fix those issues than it might be to just set the system up correctly.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know what the issues are behind doing that if you need to move more rapidly, but I would, if you can, put the brakes on, make your decisions, and then move forward. That's my suggestion. I don't know, John, if you have a different one.
No, I mean, I would also say temporary always makes me a little nervous-ish.
Hmm.
Temporary words like temporary, miscellaneous. I prefer to have more, controlled terms behind these things. Potentially, if those were hidden and not everyone got to see those folders, potentially then. But yeah, go back. There's lots to be done on that one.
Yeah.
Wow, the questions are coming.
Yeah. So Troy Hicks, it looks like Troy is actually offering answers rather than a question, which is
Okay.
fantastic. This is great data. So this is something I didn't bring up, but if you can uh, do the metrics around how much time you're saving. So today it's taking, what has he got? Let's say 5 hours to do the work you need to in the dam. And in 6 months, as improvements have been made, now you're um, saving 3 hours. And you know, if you do a cost across users, you get a total. So here it's almost $500,000. I think, those are numbers that your execs are going to look at. So definitely look at what Troy added here and act on those.
And I love the fact that we are a community, the fact that we're answering and sharing with each other. Well
Hmm.
done, Troy. If we can call you out, Troy, thank you. That was a great answer. Good follow-up for that one.
All right. So, John, I'm going to ask you this one. How does modular content really work? Especially if you mostly use InDesign to create assets. And what else do you need to make it work?
Hmm. And then there was a follow-up. I was just reading about modular content recently. We live in a world of ecosystems. We live in a world of it's been the last few years where they've sort of mentioned this idea of modular contents. Back in the day, DAM was a single standalone place, a big box that was installed in IT, and the assets were big things, and it was one thing. That's no longer the case. It is 2026. My golly, it's almost 27. Content is made up of multiple things. You have a document, and then there could be a header, there could be copy, there could be a graphic, there could be five or six things within the one thing. Those little pieces are all modular pieces. And you could ingest the asset as a one with all those things, but you should also then tell everyone where those cool things are because the copy is something that is reusable. The header potential, the graphic could be usable, the logo over here, potential notes or copyright or legal information. So that's modular content. And what we have seen is dams who are, I'm going to use the M word, mature. I love that word. I am mature. I think that there is an argument to be made that when that modular content in there, you're able to start be the opportunity for reuse is higher and the opportunity to find those good things faster. If it was just one, you're gonna like, oh, that is cool. Who made that? That's going to take a few minutes, if not hours. Where can I get that graphic? That could be a little bit of time. But if you take all the pieces apart and they become modularized, then you're able to find them even better. Modular.
Modular. Great
Question.
answer.
Anonymous, I think it was. Anonymous.
Anonymous. We've got a couple of implementation questions sneaking in here. So we can try to address those, but I do want to make sure that we're focusing on optimization, but we will do these because we can. So the first one is around storage size and how do you plan and work with this aspect of large file sized video assets.
Ooh.
Um, so this is you need to do a lot of discovery again around how much stuff you have, and then present that number with some sort of growth number to the vendor. So you can assume that in the first year you're not going to upload as much stuff as you might in your second and third year because you're really focusing your first year on implementation.
Ooh.
Um, I think the one thing to keep in mind is that vendors aren't going to charge you for storage you're not using. So even if your numbers aren't perfect or exact, if you can ask for costs for 5 TB, but you're only uploading 2 TB, you're sort of planning for those numbers. knowing that you're not necessarily going to hit them as just from a safety perspective, you know how much 5 terabytes is going to cost. So anything you upload that's less than 5 terabytes is going to be less than that number, is sort of what I'm trying to communicate there. Um,
Mhm.
so uh, yeah, I would say that. And then I'm looking at the second part of this, which is what capabilities to make sure we review when evaluating DAM platforms. Storage. Okay, so there are a few things that I would think about. Do you want to pass your data to cold storage as well as active hot storage? And if so, are you going to pass your masters into cold storage and have the system create your derivatives on ingest? So in that case, you need to know what your master file size is for that cold storage and get a quote on that, which is going to be a heck of a lot cheaper than if you store your masters in the DAM where you need that hot active storage.
Mhm.
So that's one thing to consider, that hybrid storage options. Uh, I think that's probably, um, yeah, that's my answer. I don't know, John, do you have anything to add to that?
I would say I'm curious. Please feel free to continue going with this. The individual who asked this, Adam. You say a moving target. I'd like to know a little bit more about moving target. I think when I saw this question, this is, to take a page from Amy's playbook, which is go back to discovery. Like it, I don't know why it's a moving target, but when you're thinking about a dam and all these different types of storage, there could be a warm, cold, hot type of thing. Oh, video is subject to our musician's approval. Ooh, now I'm getting more interested. And this is a note for everyone, when you are beginning to think of storage, you may have like cold storage stuff, archival, you may not get to use it. There's middle, medium or warm storage where you might touch, and then there's the hot stuff, active files, current campaigns, et cetera, et cetera. I always like when people are considering their storage needs going forward that they're always looking at their assets and seeing which ones do we need now, which ones we might need a little bit of, logos are always going to be reused, et cetera. And then the stuff in cold that we may not get to all the time, but we can certainly cut costs by keeping them in a good, safe place.
Yeah,
But
and I would say for Adam, if you don't really know how much video you're going to be uploading, then I would go with my like overestimation rather than underestimation, because if you do estimate 2 terabytes and you hit 3 terabytes, you're going to get dinged for that and you're not going to have planned for it. So
mhm.
overestimate. All right, the next
I
one.
I see a question. Can you ask me this one, Amy? Because this one's fun.
Okay.
Aditya. Hope I
All
did
right.
pronounce your
So
name
DAM
correctly.
job postings often ask for 3 to 5 years of experience, even at a coordinator level, which I'm assuming is like an entry level, or
Hmm.
not an entry level, but a lower level. For someone coming from adjacent fields such as media production, what experience actually transfers, and how do you make that case to a hiring manager? As someone doing a master's in DAM, what would you say is the best way
Yeah.
to position oneself to gain entry into the market?
And I would love your opinion on this too, Amy, because
Mhm.
you do a lot of hiring and you certainly see the job postings that are out there. I like this one for a few reasons. One, Aditya, I hope again I'm pronouncing it correctly. I've been teaching digital asset management at the iSchool at San Jose State for 20 years. I have a lot of students. This is a master's program. They're all looking for jobs at some point, and they ask that similar question: is how do I get that experience? Go get that experience. There's lots of ways to do it. Big believer in internships and volunteer experience. Most organizations have the opportunities to allow interns. It differs by state. So sometimes there's paid and then there's unpaid ones, but that's at a state level. So go figure that out. But I do love those ideas of getting internships. Also, volunteer. I have seen many people in the past who have gone to volunteer at organizations on a sort of a part-time limited basis to get that experience. I've also seen, plug for the dam vendors out there, some dam vendors actually allow you, when you're at that sort of, I'm in that early stages, learning level, they'll give you sort of like access to their dams and be like, go play. Go play, because the better you get to know our system, you might be able to use this system in the future. And I do like that idea of sort of volunteering, internships, and getting experience. As for the 3 to 5 years, I mean, Amy, you see the postings.
Mhm.
People are always looking for the best. The more experience, the better. how do you feel about that 3 to 5 number-ish?
Well, I mean, I feel like that's the number for every field these days, not just dam managers. And I I do think that if you've got adjacent experience in what did you say here? Media,
Yeah.
and some of these others, librarian, it's a
Yeah.
very popular field. So or sort of type of field that gets hired into dam manager positions.
Mhm.
I think your education is what you gotta sort of lean into on that, that you don't, and then I think you're gonna have to combine that with some sort of experience. And I think John's suggestions make a lot of sense. I'm not a big fan of the unpaid internship. I think people should be paid for their work.
Mhm.
But if that's how you're going to get a paid position, that might be what you need to do. I also
Mhm.
think coming in at at a lower level and make working your way up is kind of how it works,
Yep.
unfortunately.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from with that.
And if anyone, so Aditya, if you want to connect with Amy and I afterwards, love to do so. Because in fact, Amy, yesterday, a certain person of a certain large organization based in Northern California wrote me yesterday and we're like, hey, I need 2 interns for the summer. So I'm like, what? That is awesome. A, thank you for thinking of us. And B, let us help you. So Aditya, please connect with Amy and I afterwards. Love to help. I love when I see a lot of folk getting in and getting that experience at different levels. All right. Amy.
Yes.
I love this question. I love this question. I love this question because we get a lot of this type of work and you do a lot of work in the RFP space. So
Yep.
from James, if I may say your name, James, thank you very much. What would you consider the non-negotiable questions that need to be answered internally before selecting a vendor list and creating an RFP? This is for everyone, I think. This is a great question, James.
That
Yes.
need to be answered internally. Okay.
Before selecting a vendor list and creating the RFP.
I think you need to understand all of the all of the different units that will be adopted into the dam. You need to understand what their needs are, what their current pain points are. Like, what are you trying to fix with this dam? I think that's the key. And then that's where your actions start from. You know the pain points as you're moving into the dam, those are the things you're addressing, right? So that's a key thing. I think the other thing is you have to have an established governance in place. Who is going to run this dam? Who is going to be the one that person goes to for questions, for approvals? Like, we that tends to be kind of wiggly in a lot of organizations. The dam manager goes, I don't know who to talk to about this. Who's going to take responsibility for the different work that has to happen? Is the
Mhm.
dam manager making the decisions about the metadata schema, or are the catalogers or whoever the product specialists it might be the folks who understand the products, are they helping to create the metadata schema or the taxonomy especially? So to me, it's what are you trying to solve? Who's going to do the work? Um, and then what content is going to be prioritized? That would be the other question that I would ask. And if you have those three things in place, you can implement a dam pretty much. We have
I
a whole process that takes
we do.
5 months to do dam selection. So trying to condense it into 3 questions is really, really hard. But I think those are sort of the key ones to consider. And if other people have thoughts on that, please feel free to jump in. And John, do you have thoughts on that?
I was just going to say, technology always goes last, and I think this individual figured that out. But it's the
Hmm.
people, the process, and the data. Figure that stuff out.
Hmm.
Like Amy said, go back to governance,
Hmm.
but figure that stuff out because when you get this nice new shiny thing, and yay, okay. You turn it on. Now what?
Yeah.
Who's going to do it? Who's responsible? Goes back to governance. And I said at the beginning, I was going to repeat myself with that word, and here we are. Governance is good, everybody. Go
Yeah.
back. Go
Yeah.
back. These are
All
good
right.
questions today.
So
Okay.
let's see. I think I get to ask you a question next,
Uh-oh.
John. Just looking to see if there's anyone we haven't heard from.
Well, Anonymous is doing great today, Amy. Anonymous is
Oh,
super doing great.
yeah. Okay. So there's a response to my point about dam selection taking 5 months. And I will say that that's on the long, I would say that's for a full
Um,
RFP. That's if you are going to send out an RFP for a month, if you're going to do discovery appropriately, if you're going to do some like preliminary demos just to see what the marketplace looks like. Are you going to do dam vendors demos after the RFP process come or the RFP comes back? You need time for analysis. And then are you going to do a proof of concept? Like, are you going to get your hands in the system before you select one? If you're going to do all of those things correctly, it's going to take a while. And so
yeah.
that's where I would say 5 months. If you want to do a lighter weight approach, you sure can, but I would be cautious because this is a huge decision you're making, a very expensive decision that's going to affect so many people and so many processes in your organization that shortcutting it, I think, you could run into problems
Yeah.
down the road. So that's my answer to that one.
Amy, I remember meeting someone at a conference, and I met them in September, and they were like, "So, I need to find a dam, choose a dam, and implement the dam by January 1st." I'm like, "Oh, so that won't happen.
Yes, right.
Let's have a hug." But no, this takes time. Yeah, 5 months seems like a long time, but this is your one. You don't want to make a mistake in this process. Take your time. Take your
And I
time.
would say from selection to implementation to having an MVP, so your
Uh,
first phase rollout, if you if you can do it in less than 18 months, and that's for a complex system, maybe 12 months for a sort of more out of the box mid-tier dam, that's reasonable. But if you're going to build the right system in your organization, just plan for 18 months. Might not take that long, but that I would not promise an out of, that the I would not um put a date on the calendar that is earlier than that. Surprise with a win if it takes less time. Okay. All
agreed.
right. Let's
Mm.
see. I've got a question for John about AI. So, any recommendations for how to handle AI expectations regarding description of archival material? AI can describe how something looks and can potentially identify people, places, and things, but AI doesn't understand the context that often requires a human to interpret. I struggle with describing the difference to my supervisors between what AI does and what's actually important to describe about archival materials.
Oh, wow. Anonymous, 10 out of 10. Excellent question. Who are you? You're doing very well today, Anonymous. Oh my goodness. Well, that's an entire webinar that Amy and I can host next time just on AI.
Yeah.
Interesting that you chose to use archival materials as the subject, but still, oh my goodness, expectations. We are living in 26. AI is not going away. It's here, it's staying. Let's not go there. That's done. Okay. Expectations. There are missed expectations. There is a missed alignment. Our bosses and our bosses' bosses are, yay, let's use AI. And then everyone else is like, but what do you mean? I don't understand. And what do you actually mean by AI? But if you go inside of digital asset management or CMS or any archival systems, etc., AI has been around for a while. We've been doing photoshopping and tweaking for years and years and years. But in terms of this, the expectations, let's be very clear. AI does not understand context. And this is a context game that we're living in right now. Certainly, context is something we need to talk a little bit more about. It does not always do a great job of people. It misgenders all the time. So to sort of go into that in a little bit detail, AI is really good at identifying color. It's more of a blue background. It's more of a green background. You can see things and be like, okay, so AI can sort of pick up the color behind you. But when you look at individuals, human beings, then the lovely, beauty of us all, it gets that incorrect all the time. And that's why human beings are so amazing. I never say AI go by yourself and go have fun. I do say that AI should play with humans side by side. So there's a human QA, quality assurance, validation point to go around this. I see and I hear your point about the struggle because, again, the missed expectation are people like AI sounds great. It's going to solve everything, right? No, not necessarily. So that's why we as humans need to be in there because if it does misgender and it gets it wrong, we need to go back and say, actually, not true. We need to sort of have that sort of ongoing dialogue and discussions of AI and humans working side by side. I love this question so much because AI is not going away. We need to talk about these mis-expectations. Amy.
Yeah, I would also say if they're gung ho and they want you to do something, there are AI can mean different things. Like maybe you can do an AI driven search. Maybe your DAM offers that. That's a great way to start without
Yeah.
touching your metadata.
Yeah.
Let's see what the search, what the search can do with your metadata as it is. The other thing I would say is, again, if they're like, go forth, make sure you create like a specific field that you're working in that you can do your exploration, your AI exploration in, whether that's a captions field or a tag field or whatever it might be, just something basic, and give it a shot on a subset of your files and see how it does. If it's terrible, you can always just remove that field from the system. Um, so that's a way to start slowly. But I would say what John says about humans, they understand nuance, they understand context, and there's a phrase that we use in this world called humans in the loop, and you always want to keep humans in the loop.
Yeah, and especially with archival material, I mean, as a quick plug for the value of metadata, certainly many archival materials may have used metadata words that we don't use anymore today. And I am fully aware of many museums and archives who are doing sort of metadata realignment exercises to take some of those words and potentially provide more inclusive words right now because some of the words that we might have used in the past are not words that we should be using anymore. So that's a plug for always going back and taking a look at your materials, whether it's archival or not, and making sure we're using better inclusive words. Love that question. And pause. Scene. Amy,
Yeah.
this is a fun one. From Brian. Thank you, Brian. What are your recommendations for training users during the implementation of a new dam as a sole administrator in order to
Hmm.
make sure they are comfortable and fully equipped to use the tool? Training. Also, plug everyone, please train. Please train.
Yes. We can't say that enough. You need good documentation. You need training, and that training doesn't happen once, it happens consistently. You have office hours. You create videos showing people how to do things that they can just watch a minute and a half video. That way, you're not talking to all these people individually, but you're creating sort of materials that will address this question for lots of people, right? It's a time savings that way. Um, I would also say that the concept of train the trainer is important.
Mm,
If you've got somebody in your department, in a department that's like, I'm on it, I'm in this system, it works, make sure they have the skills and the tools that they need in order to help the rest of the folks in the department. If you're at a huge organization and you've got 1,000 users, you can't reach all of them in a consistent way. And so finding the champions in the different departments who can help you spread the gospel, I think is a really effective way to do that. But as a recap, documentation that's kept up, those videos of
mm.
screen captures of how things function in the system, and then office hours or a place where people can go to just drop a question in to you. That's maybe, have a question link in the dam that people can click on.
I will concur with your training never ends. It keeps going, keeps going. And in fact, I know of one organization that makes it mandatory to do training every year. And when you do it every year, you get a little check mark box something for HR, and HR gets to see that you did the training every year. That's awesome. Maybe not everyone can do that, but wow, well done. Training never ends.
All right.
Uh-oh.
John, I'm going to ask you the question from Ryan about legacy metadata. Any thoughts on long-term maintenance and retention for legacy metadata? But not the assets, just the metadata? Okay, so for example, a metadata field tracking the department who requested a marketing piece may have been useful once upon a time. Many years later, that metadata requires a decoder ring to step back through time to make meaningful. Seems like a justification for elimination and the conversation starter for understanding what value that metadata is meant to provide. John?
Interesting question. Thank you for putting the decoder ring in there because we all need decoder rings. Legacy metadata. We to go back to Amy's point. Also, why not legacy assets? Maybe that's a different question, but that's maybe you can follow up on that one. The maintenance or maintains of legacy metadata. Listen, we never know when something might be potentially reused again. And it is upon us, whoever you are listening today, if you are a digital asset manager, librarian, archivist, whoever you are in that informational professional role, looking at these things, legacy metadata is something to take note of. We never know. And I'm a big fan of notes fields. I think some things should be kept because you just never know. And I do like the idea of not maintaining 20, 30, 40 fields that just don't make any sense anymore. But I do think there is a good reason why. That's sort of a provenance. Let's be real honest there. Let's go back and see the custodial history of who touched these things, who requested them, et cetera, et cetera. I do believe there is value in that sort of custodial history of those types of assets because you just don't know. I have seen it where people are like, you know what? Didn't we have a campaign back in 96? Who was the art director? Who were these things? I do think some legacy metadata do make sense. Oh, and someone just commented. Another side of legacy metadata values for a field that has changed, but we still want the old data tagged. Correct. There is value to keeping legacy metadata. Now, we also, Amy and I know that we live in a world that know that sometimes there are sole administrators, and you may not have the time to do these types of things. So this is a best, if the world was amazing and great, which Amy and I want the world to be, if there was time to do this type of thing, I would recommend this. But you may not have the time, and I totally understand that. But legacy metadata, I do believe that there is an argument that despite the decoder ring not being made available, there is justification to keep some of this legacy metadata because you just never know, and it's a good thing to keep.
And from a tech perspective, you may be able to, in your system, make that metadata not searchable. Like you can turn that field off. And if that's the case, then it's not getting in the way of people finding stuff or getting weird results that don't make any sense because that metadata doesn't make sense. You could even turn that metadata view off. So it's there in the record, but nobody's seeing it. And you know, as the DAM admin, that it's there. And if someone comes looking for something from, 1996, then you know it's there. But, I have no problem with keeping and hiding. It's an archive as well as an active system.
Yeah, he responded to that too. We have product literature that is long in the tooth, so assets remain, but our meaningfulness of the metadata does drift. The idea of a notes field and migrating to maintain it with provenance is powerful. Well done. I'm
Good.
glad you like that. All right, Amy.
Yeah.
Mm, okay, this is interesting.
Let's do the one about the difficult vendor.
Yeah, that's what I'm going after. So, Anonymous, well done. You're doing well today, Anonymous. Loving the questions from Anonymous. So they're going to ask this one anonymously. But do you have any advice on how to deal with phone calls? Do you have any advice on how to deal with a difficult vendor? We are locked. Don't like that. We are locked into a 3-year contract with our DAM vendor, and they just aren't providing us great support. Is it rude to request a different customer service support person?
I would say if you are locked into a contract where you are paying a vendor a ton of money for your dam, there's nothing rude about asking for what you need. The vendor has a responsibility, a contracted responsibility. You should have an SLA in place that tells you what their response times look like. You signed a contract at the beginning of this relationship saying you agreed to that SLA. So that's one thing. If they're not adhering to the SLA, then that's problem number one, and you need to address that, I would say, much further up the chain than with your CSM. And at the
Mhm.
same time, if you're not getting what you need from your CSM, you need to find another one, find somebody in that company that will listen to you. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing rude about that at all. You are a paying customer, and as they always say, the customer's always right. So you need to fight for what you deserve.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
don't,
that's
you
true.
can't tell that I feel strongly about that, can you?
I'm troubled by the 3 year the locked thing, but 100% agree with what Amy just said. I mean, the whole idea of it's not rude at all. My goodness, if you're not getting good support, go get someone who will give you that support. And if you don't, that's a different question that Amy and I would love to talk to you about privately. But my goodness, no worries. It's not rude to say I need some extra help here.
And to those of you who are looking to select a new dam system in the near future, you are marrying that vendor for however long you are going to be working with them. That is a marriage, a relationship. You need to get along. You need to respect each other. You need to listen to each other just like you would in a relationship. And
Yeah.
if they're, and you should be able to tell right off the bat, even in the sales calls, if they're going to be a good partner to you.
Mhm.
You're buying not just technology, but a partner.
Mhm. I would to add to that marriage argument, don't forget the divorce clause in your contracts. Not everyone stays with their vendor forever, so just like marriage potentially, but let's not go there. But in terms of your damn vendor, make sure you have a good divorce clause. At the time upon which we decide to change platforms, et cetera, et cetera, what are the terms of that? I have seen where some vendors say, if you leave, I get the metadata. No. Not cool. Super not cool. That's my metadata. So that's a tip for everyone of homework to do. Go look at your divorce clauses with your vendors because metadata is yours. Anyway, good
Yeah.
questions today. What is it on this Thursday? Some good questions. Is it my turn?
Yeah, there's more AI questions. All right. With AI starting to automate tagging and metadata generation, how do you see the day-to-day role of a DAM professional shifting over the next 5 years? So put on your cap there. And what should someone entering the industry now be building towards?
Okay, interesting, Aditya. Great question. With AI starting to automating tagging, how do you see the day-to-day role? Like everything else, like every evolution, things just change. I'm old enough to remember when the internet popped up, and that was like, ooh, wow, how interesting. That changed a little bit, right? Mobile phones, that changed a little bit too. But yes, we are in a different place, in a different world. Forget just AI. Agentic AI, that's something that I'm fascinated by. I think it's interesting, but it is certainly happening. Everyone who is in this profession, if you're a damn librarian, if you are a digital asset manager, if you're a creative person, AI is here. So our positions will shift. Sometimes we might be doing a little bit more fact checking than we used to do. I certainly see that. I was just at an event in Toronto talking about provenance, and certainly certain professions are changing to be a little bit more fact checking in terms of the responsibility of the provenance of the articles and the data and the imagery and the videos that they're receiving. But definitely over the next 5 years, we will need to be a little bit more understanding of what is out there. I think if you have not played with some type of a Gen I tool, I would highly encourage you to do so. I think that's again something that's not gonna go away. But I think if you're entering the industry now, I would definitely say not to creative tools. I'm not plugging any sort of specific ones out there. There are some very big ones. I would definitely want to know those. I would definitely want to know some workflow tools. Definitely be familiar with that. But in terms of the AI automation type thing, I would definitely want to have some sort of Gen AI experience under my belt going through.
Yep. All right. Uh,
My turn. Is it my turn?
yes. There's one over from Courtney over in the chat. Do you have the chat open? I'll just,
Is that Courtney to everyone? We're starting to do that one?
We are starting a new optimization
Yeah.
process.
Okay, so Courtney, in the chat, thank you over there. We are starting a new optimization process, and that's the whole point of this webinar. We are starting a new optimization process with our vendor. The dam went unmanaged for about a year and a half. Yikes. And then I've just been trying to keep up and hadn't had the management support until they agreed to do this optimization. Love that. What should I expect from the vendor end? Oh, great question, Courtney.
Yeah, so I would say, and this is not a dig at all on vendors, but I would not expect a lot because probably most of your problems are not technical. Maybe some of them are, but in general, if you haven't been managing the system for a while, you're going to have, issues with your metadata or things that aren't the something's broken, right? It's going to be the workflows, process, people, that those are the problems. So if something's broken, you should be able to go to the vendor because you have that SLA for your support and say to them, fix this broken problem. But if your permissions are set up wrong and you had to set them up at the beginning, if your metadata fields are not right or your taxonomy needs to be fixed, that might be you who has to work on those. And just
Yeah.
as a plug, this is something we do at AVP all the time.
Mhm.
And in general, we do most of the optimization work on behalf of the client with very minimal support from the vendor because of what I said, that if it ain't broke, then the problems are probably going to be yours to solve.
Mhm.
That's a very black and white answer. So, John, I don't know if you want to
No,
color
I
anything in there.
completely agree. That sort of like, what do I expect from the vendor end? Amy's right. Wouldn't expect a whole lot, but this goes back to you. This is your opportunity to sort of have that sort of course correction going forward. Yeah, I wouldn't expect a whole lot. We might have time for one or two more-ish. I think I'm going to ask this one. Interesting, because I think we do see this one. Amy, this is anonymous. Again, well done, anonymous. Have you seen examples of organizations using their dam as a digital preservation system? If so, what does that look like? I'm thinking beyond the digital preservation capabilities sort of thing, redundancy, audit trails, checksum. These capabilities are not a comprehensive or standard supported for digital preservation. But have we seen people using dams as digital preservation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I tend to think that, well, I mean, this is a whole other webinar about what digital preservation is, what it means. Digital preservation systems are not the same as dam systems. They have very different functionality. A dam is meant to actively manage, and provide access, controlled access to your content. That's basically the opposite of what a digital preservation system does. It manages static content that you don't want people to access or touch. So if you want a true digital preservation system that goes above and beyond redundancy, audit trails, and checksum creation, then you're going to need a digital preservation system. If you're comfortable with pretty good digital preservation, which is what I call it, where you do get you have an audit trail that tracks every change to your metadata or your asset, you have version control, you have checksum creation and the ability to test that checksum, which is not something you see in a lot of dams, but there are dams out there that do that. If you're comfortable with that, then that's pretty good. I mean, what I also say is dam vendors are in the business of not losing your content, right? Like if they lose your content, that is a fail on their part. And, maybe I'm putting a lot of trust in vendors, but I do think that there is a security there that your content is going to be there for you. Um, so to me, dams do pretty good digital preservation. If you're looking for perfect, if you're looking for, knowing when a file becomes obsolete, you're not going to get that in the dam. But I also question whether you need a digital preservation system to do that. But again, that's a whole nother conversation.
Mhm.
I don't know, John, if you have thoughts on that.
No, and that's a discovery opportunity. You do need to ask yourself. I see people all the time going, I should get a PIM. I hear about it all the time. I'm like, do you have any products? No. Well, then you don't need a PIM. So move on. So I'm not
Yep.
trying to be
Yep.
silly here, but I think to Amy's point, this is a discovery opportunity for you to look at things and go like, do we really need to? What do we need? Again, Amy, we hear it. Good. People laughed at that. Amy, we hear people all the time about like mams and dams. And it's like, what do you need it to do? What are you trying to do? Is it a place to
Yeah.
put something? Or is it a place to put something and then edit? Well, that's a different thing. That potentially is a more of a MAM situation. So Amy's correct. Go back and discover and really sort of figure out what you can do with that
And
one.
also figure out how what your level of comfort is with the idea of digital preservation. If perfect is the enemy of the good, you're going with a digital preservation system.
Yep.
If good is, I don't know if I think I misquoted that, but good enough is a damn as far as I'm concerned. And I come out of the digital preservation world. So, like I said, this is a long conversation that we don't have time
Mhm.
for. One more question, John, from
I
Brian.
do we
Oh,
have time? I don't know if we
we have five.
do.
Oh, do we need to wrap up?
I
Okay.
think we need to wrap up. I have a note here saying someone asked a question about the questions, and will we get that? Yes, we are going to, whatever has not been answered, Amy and I will answer all those things, and everyone will get sort of a follow-up email with a recording of this. So this is not lost. You're going to get a recording of this. So yes. And whatever was not answered, Amy and I will answer. So you'll get that.
All right. And are we handing it back to Brittany now? Or are we going to talk about the optimization checklist? Well, so I'll talk about it. We have an offering on our website. It is free, and it is about optimization and some of the things to look for and what you can do to take some of the first steps towards optimizing your and elevating your dam. And I did want to just quickly flash on screen. Sorry, I have to adjust my technology here. Uh, this is part of what you get if you want the
Yes, there it is. There it is.
there. This is what you get if you sign up. You get this checklist, and this is I'm going to zip down to the bottom. This is based on our digital asset management operational model, and each of these sections is represented with optimization actions that you can take. And uh, in the article, it talks a little bit about where to start and what to do and what to do. So I'm going to stop sharing that, but that is available. And are we dropping a link to that article? Yep, there it
We
is.
just did. We dropped a link in there.
It's like,
Brittany also reminded me to include that if you want some damn time with John, you can sign up on that. You can get some time with me. And all these people thanking Amy and I, you are most welcome. We love doing this, and we do it on a regular basis here at AVP because look at the community that we have. Look at the fact that people were answering questions to each other. I think that's really important. I love the AMAs, not the American Music Awards. That's a different thing. But the Ask Me Anythings from AVP we love,
all right. Well, I hate to say this, but we have 2 minutes left, John, and I think we can sneak in one more question.
which always
I,
amazing. Look at all these kudos. Look at all these happy people.
all right. So here's
Question.
one for you. I'm going to ask you, this is because Brian and Abigail both commented on it. How do you approach a dam with content that has not historically tracked usage rights or expirations? Where would you start to ensure there is no misuse?
Oh my golly, how do you approach a dam with content that has not historically tracked usage rights? Oh my golly. Oh, and I pause. Oh my goodness. Why weren't you doing that in the past? I want to know all those things. Where would you start to ensure there is no misuse? Oh my golly. Well, this is an opportunity for you to go back to discovery and start thinking of governance. But oh my goodness, why were you not tracking usage rates? So this is both a metadata game and a governance game. Metadata can help you out to be able to go and see what has expired, when does licenses expire, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a governance and a metadata game to play. Why were they not being tracked?
Well, and I would say if you don't
Like clutch
know
my
what the
pearls.
rights are to your older stuff, if everything pre
Um,
2020 you don't know anything about, I would throw some sort of restriction on that. Maybe throw a
yeah.
watermark on those pre 2020 assets. And then as people ask for them, you can do the one by one approval. But that
Yeah.
way you've got control over it. And it's sort of a quick and messy way to do it, but I think that's probably going to be the safest way to approach it.
Yeah.
And now we're at time. We don't want to keep anyone any later. So thank you very much for attending
Thank
and
you. Thank
hope to
you.
see you back here again for another AMA. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.